All right, thank you everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. I love that you guys took time out of a lovely Saturday afternoon here in Antelope Valley to actually talk about the issues and fight for the issues, including this one about war. So I was actually really moved by what Pastor Jim said, and there was one thing you said there that I hadn't thought of at all. So we talk about all the brutal consequences of war. But you mentioned that when we send people to war, we send them to kill people. And I know this stat, which is amazing. It's actually a very hopeful stat. In World War I, they did a study to see how effective the soldiers were at shooting and killing the people on the other side. And they found out something they did not expect at all. Even though their lives were on the line, 85% of the time, our soldiers and the other side would shoot above each other's head on purpose. 85% of the time. That's because we're social animals, and we feel connected to one another, and we don't want to kill each other. And then oftentimes people would die because they just refuse to kill the guy on the other side. And so, but Pastor Jim, what you said is the part that I didn't think of, which is you said, you served in Vietnam and thank you for your service, but that grief stayed with you for 50 years. It's not just that act that we ask you to take when we send you to war, it's that it stays with you and you grieve. Like the word grief there was really, really powerful. And so whenever we talk about new conflict and new war, this is never brought up in the media. And instead what's brought up is anchors like Brian Williams saying, look at how beautiful the bombs look. He literally said that when we were bombing Syria. You know what doesn't look beautiful is when those bombs land. And so at that time, we were theoretically going to bomb Syria because of the chemical weapons that they apparently used. And they showed pictures of the kids that had died, and all of our hearts broke, right? But how about when the bombs land? Other kids die. And how about Yemen, where we are backing the war that Saudi Arabia started and continues, and we've already had 85,000 kids die. So in that case where they want to go to war with Syria, they show you pictures of 3 dead kids, and it breaks your heart, and it should. But they never ever show you the 85,000 dead kids in Yemen, because apparently they don't count, and apparently we need the cheap oil from Saudi Arabia more than we care about people's lives. So, and it's amazing what they leave out of the conversation. So for example, North Korea under Donald Trump has built 6 nuclear weapons. Yet there's no conversation about going to war with North Korea, and I don't want war with North Korea, and I'm happy about that, right? But immediately we start talking about maybe we got to get Maduro out of Venezuela, and we got to do regime change in Iran. Now, there's about, I think I've seen 50, I've seen 85 as the number of dictators in the world. So let's call it 6 dozen, okay? Split the difference. There are 6 dozen dictators in the world, but there's only 2 that we consistently talk about how we got to take action. And in the case of Iran, we murdered their top general, General Soleimani. He had killed people too, so people aren't shedding a tear for him. We all understand that, right? But what you're trying to do is start a war. And that's part of why we're here. So, and if they killed our top general, we'd immediately go to war. Okay, and by the way, if Iran killed Saudi Arabia's top general, we'd go to war. And Saudi Arabia's top generals, one did the atrocities in Yemen, and I tell you about the 85,000 kids, but then there's all the other civilians who've died in Yemen, and then there's a starvation and disease that has begun in Yemen because of the blockade. And that endangers hundreds of thousands of lives. People are literally starving in Yemen. So if Iran said, well, look, Saudi Arabia's top general killed all these people, we have a right to murder him. And round we go. But in those conversations, the media never connects one dot in particular. Hey, Venezuela and Iran, what are strange, disparate countries to care about and to emphasize Oh, right. The only thing that connects Iran and Venezuela is that they are both top 10 oil producers. In fact, I think they might be top 5 or 6. Who are the others? U.S., Iraq, we started a war against them too, even though they didn't attack us. What a strange coincidence. Saudi Arabia, they've already are part of our alliance, but Iran and Venezuela are top oil producers that are not part of our alliance. So all of a sudden, we're concerned about their human rights record. I'm concerned about our human rights record. Look, by the way, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be concerned about the human rights record of Iran and Venezuela, but we should also be concerned about the human rights record of North Korea, China, Russia. Now that we've got a fascist in charge in Brazil, arresting journalists, I'm very concerned about his human rights record. And of course, our so-called ally, Saudi Arabia, that often is the worst of the worst. And it's another funny thing, you know, I'm an immigrant, I'm originally Muslim, my family's Muslim, and when it comes to countries they don't like Iran, because they want to get their oil, and by the way, you never get their oil, that's not how it works. Companies that are connected to our government and fund our government get the oil for cheap, they make billions of dollars in profits, and by the way, even if they don't get the oil, when you start a war, it creates instability in the Middle East, which automatically drives oil prices up. And their costs do not go up 1 cent, but their prices go up, their profits go up. War is good, not for America, not for our soldiers, not for our service members, but it is good for business, for oil executives. And yet the media never talks about it. Never. So we're led to believe that it is a coincidence that our government, funded by those same oil companies, want to attack only Iran and Venezuela. So it's a lie. Here's another thing they never talk about. They say, when it comes to things that help you, health care for everybody, what's the number one thing they say? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? College for all. Oh my God, outrageous. You want your kids to have equal opportunity, and you want them to live the American dream? How are you going to pay for that, right? But here we are. Just a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about starting World War III with Iran, and not one anchor on television asked, how are you going to pay for that? Not one reporter from the Washington Post, New York Times, NPR, you name it, not one of them asked one Republican warmonger, how are you going to pay for that? They never, ever asked that question. And then, hey, lo and behold, all of the corrupt corporations that buy off our politicians, they're also top advertisers on cable news. What a lucky break. What an incredible coincidence. And I'm told over and over again that money in politics is a coincidence. I can show you the voting record of almost every politician and show you the money that they took from donors and the votes they had that match it. Yet, the national media tells you, no. Don't talk about the number one factor in politics. They never talk about the donor money. Isn't that weird? Well, first of all, here, give you another example. Number one donors in the country, number one industry. Not the oil companies, and not the bankers, not anyone you would necessarily expect in that realm. Number one is the drug companies. Now, it actually makes a ton of sense. Why? So, corporations want to maximize profit. Once you start this corporatism, it's not capitalism, it's corporatism. Once you start it, their number one objective and the way that they can compete the best is by killing off their competition. So it's ironically against capitalism. They want to kill off all of the competition, okay? And so what's the easiest way to do that? Go to the government and have them do it for you. So for example, in New Jersey, the donors, top donors at the local level in that particular state are car dealerships. So you know what they did? They passed a law saying Tesla is not allowed to have car dealerships. Why? No reason given. My donors told me I don't want the competition. I'm killing off the competition. So that's it. They were done with it. It is corruption on a mass scale. Now, in the case of the drug companies, they get patents. Patents are literal monopolies. You are not allowed to compete with them. It used to be 5 years. They've now extended it to 12 years. The second thing that they got the government to do is, we're now, as a government, not allowed to negotiate drug prices with drug companies. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. And is it capitalism to do that? No, of course not. In capitalism, of course you negotiate prices. But here they say, no, my donors tell me I'm not allowed to negotiate with you. So on behalf of the American people, I will pay any price that the drug company says. And if it bankrupts you, that's your problem. If it bankrupts the American government, that's your problem. But my donors say, we're not allowed to negotiate. We just have to take whatever price they give us. So now I got bad news for you guys. A lot of folks here, you know the Republican Party is corrupt, but their corruption is, now again, the media will never tell you this. They play on the one hand this, on the other hand that. He said this, she said that. I don't give a damn what they said. What's the reality? You're supposed to be a journalist. What is the truth? The truth is that the Republican Party at the national level is 100% corrupt. I can show you their voting record and match it to their donors 100% of the time. Now, that's not the bad news. Any sentient human being that pays attention to the media and to news knows that already, even though the national media is in the Republican protection racket system, okay? But worse yet, guys, we've lost the Democratic Party. At least 75% of the Democratic Party also takes donor money. It used to be 90% until, honestly, a group I started called Justice Democrats. Justice Democrats got AOC elected, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. Also 3 wonderful incumbents, Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, and Raul Grijalva. By the way, all people of color, all uncorrupted, not $1 of corporate PAC money, no lobbyist money. And our thesis was, if you run uncorrupted, that when you win, you'll actually serve the people. How'd that turn out? Pretty good, right? Pretty good. And look, they're wonderful candidates and wonderful congresspeople. We helped a little bit, and I hope we helped enough. I had AOC on the show 34 times before she won her primary. We covered her more than the rest of the media combined, okay? And so that worked. And so when we started, the only thing we said to all the candidates is, look, we want you to be progressive, but there's no litmus test except one. You cannot take corporate PAC money. You must be honest. When we started, there was only 6 people in Congress that were not taking corporate PAC money. That number is now up to 60. Wow. So change is possible. People don't want you to believe in change. The people in power want you to sit down. They don't want you to come to events like this. And then a lot of times the reporters will be skeptical and cynical, and they'll say, ha ha, look at these people that are trying for change, but it never happens. By the way, if you're a journalist, you're not supposed to say ha ha. You're supposed to say the opposite. You're supposed to hold the people in power accountable. You're supposed to be a watchdog, not a lapdog, right? So now the bad news, though, is still 75% of the Democratic Party takes that corporate money. And so what do? I'll give you one example. I can give you 1,000. I got to give you 2 more issues, then I got to let other folks speak. Okay, so the example is the drug bill that they recently debated. So every Democrat across the country, whether they were progressive or centrist or moderate or conservative, ran on the issue of drug prices. Why? Drug prices are literally killing us. And when they do a poll, they find out, oh my God, people can't stand how bad the drug prices are and how high they are. So they all say, we're going to go fix it. They win, great, they hold the House, it's easy to fix. So I'm expecting, I've been covering politics for 25 years on the Young Turks, and I still have a little bit of naivete. So I thought, okay, well, since they all promised it and it's obvious, they're going to now pass a bill to negotiate drug prices. Pelosi and Democratic leadership say, okay, here's a bill to negotiate drug prices on 25 drugs. What? We didn't say 25 drugs. We said all drugs. Why would it be 25 drugs? Turns out it's a Trojan horse. They put in 25 drugs and they put in a clause saying you won't be able to negotiate drug prices with the rest of it for 10 years. Oh my God. The whole thing was a scam to help the drug companies. Progressives complained. They say, okay, fine, we'll make it 35. progressives say we're not going to vote for you, including mainly the Justice Democrats that led that charge, right? Finally, we got it up to 250 drugs. But still, for 10 years, you can't negotiate the other drugs. Why? Why? There's no reason. And by the way, the leaders of the Progressive Caucus in this case did a great job, Pocan and Jayapal, and Ro Khanna was a huge leader, and so was AOC on this. And they said, give us one reason why we shouldn't negotiate drug prices for every single drug in the country. Leadership, flat out, would not give a single reason. I'll tell you the reason. Corruption. So when I say this, I get attacked viciously by the Democratic Party, but more importantly and more interestingly, I get attacked viciously by the national media. How dare you? Are you saying because Democratic leadership has taken millions of dollars from the drug companies that they are corrupt? Yes, I am saying that. Yes. So when you take millions of dollars from an industry, they're not giving it to you for charity, they're not giving it to you for their health or for your health, they're giving it as a bribe. That's what it used to be called, a bribe. But no one in the national media will call it that because they are also corrupt. And if you turn on cable news and you look around, what do you see? What's the number one ads you see on cable news? Drug ads. Hey, will you look at that coincidence? Number two ads is political ads. Where does the money in politics go? It goes to politicians who then spend it on TV. And so, lo and behold, nobody ever talks about bribery that the drug companies do, and nobody ever talks about money in politics. Look, in reality, number one, we need to bring our kids back home. What are they doing in the Middle East? They're sitting ducks. They're not meant to defend us when we send them over there. They're meant to actually get fired at. It's so callous. It's so callous. What are they going to do? Trump just sent 3,500 extra troops to Iran, or to Iraq, to the Middle East. What, are we going to invade Iran with 3,500 troops? Of course not. What are they defending? Nothing. Iraq has said, you actually need to leave the country. You said you wanted us to have a democracy. We have a democracy. We just voted. We voted for you to leave. So why are you bringing in 3,500 new guys? Well, I'll tell you why. So they can get killed. And so then the neoconservatives can say, well, now our troops got killed. Now we got to go to war. So they're sending them to get killed. And you never hear any of this. So we got to bring them home. But on top of that, we got to actually spend the money that we use for those aggressive, offensive, unnecessary wars here at home. Here at home. My God. First of all, in Antelope Valley and across the 25th District, we have homelessness running amok. I mean, and God, we've allocated some money, not enough, but some money in California for homelessness. And where does it go? You want to know top donors in California? Real estate companies. And so I want to see those books. I run a business for 18 years. You're not going to get anything past me. I deal with budgets 24/7. I want to see the books. Who did you give the contracts to? What was their profit margin? Are they your donors? Because we are paying our hard-earned money, and we're doing a wonderful thing. We want to help the homeless, and we should. And when I knock on doors, look, there's some folks who are frustrated and go in the wrong direction. But 8 out of 10 times, people say we got to help them. We got to help them, right? So we need accountability in our government. We need politicians. We need representatives who are going to represent you and make sure that that money comes home, is spent here, and actually goes to where it's supposed to go. And then finally, in terms of the massive national issue that affects all of us, healthcare. We talked about it in terms of drug prices, but we need healthcare for everyone, Well, right now, 45,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. That's unconscionable. Unconscionable. We used to have private fire insurance in this country. Could you imagine if we still had that system, and because you couldn't afford fire insurance, we let you burn to death? Could you imagine if we let 45,000 people a year burn to death because they didn't have insurance? But we do that. We let 45,000 people a year die through cancer and other sicknesses that they get because they don't have private health insurance. That should be something that haunts us. We must have health care for everyone. And there's only one proposal out there right now to do that. And that is Medicare for all. So if anyone tells you, including my opponent, Democratic opponent, not even Republicans, we went to a debate the other day. By the way, the Republicans in the debate that also don't, the major candidates didn't show up. Mike Garcia sent a note saying, I can't show up to this forum. It was League of Women Voters. He said, I'm busy doing a fundraiser. Basically, I'm busy taking bribes. So I can't show up to actually talk to the voters. So Christy puts out an ad saying, I care about health care, and she calls it access. I want you to have access to health care. Well, congratulations, we already have access to health care. We just don't have it. It's like saying, I want you to have access to a Ferrari. I know, I already have access to a Ferrari, but I don't have one. You need the money for it, okay? And so then she goes on to say, I'm going to work with both parties on healthcare legislation. What on God's green earth are you talking about? The Republicans voted over 70 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Are you going to work with them to repeal Obamacare? Because they have no proposal to expand access to healthcare. None. Their only proposals is to take healthcare away from you. Trump right now and McConnell, the Republican leader, are in court saying, we want to take away protection for pre-existing conditions. Are you going to work with them on that? No. The public option is not enough. You still pay co-pays, premiums, deductibles. You still pay on average $12,000 a year for a family of 4. It doesn't solve anything. If you want universal health care, Medicare for all is the only solution. And they're fighting against it tooth and nail. Don't let them get away with it. Guys, we have a chance here, not just in my election, but in other elections as well. You're going to have some wonderful candidates come speak to you, Dana, Eric, etc. Look, Eric Olson is a great progressive that is running in this area. Dana is also brilliant, and I've seen him speak, and thank you all for running. But Eric for 36.com, he's had the courage to call out that corruption. And when he did, the Democratic Party sent him a note saying, it's personally offensive to us. Guys, if I call out corruption as I did today, did any of you get personally offended? You know why you didn't get personally offended? Because you're not corrupt. Okay? And so they're trying to shut him down now. Don't let him do that. Eric for 36.com. And then you got Warren Heaton also running. You've got these wonderful progressives that are running in this district for different races. You've got to support them all because this is our one chance. If we all lose, the establishment gets back in charge and you got no hope, no change. You're not going to get universal health care. They're going to keep directing and diverting the money to their real estate donors on homelessness. And they're going to take their cues from the donors on war as well. They're not going to fight back against Trump, the Republicans, etc. But we do have progressives, and you do have a choice. So let's go out there right now. Let's organize. Let's volunteer. So, of course, I'll mention my campaign as well. Cenk2020.com is the website. Cenk2020.com/team if you want to volunteer. Because they've got, as AOC famously said, they've got money, we've got people. So if we all volunteer and we all get out there like you are today, there isn't anything we can't do and there isn't any race we can't win. So let's stand united and let's win united. Thank you so much.